Everything that's happening right now with Donald Trump happened before it was called the Mueller report. And the media doesn't want to hear any more lip out of any conservative about what about Hillary, what about Hillary. They disaffectionately call that a whataboutism. It's not a whataboutism. It's a perfect comparison. And Representative Warren Davison, who is a former Army Ranger, had a really good point on the difference between the two cases. And he went on CNN to explain it. Play that.
Is it okay then for the former president to have all these top secret, sensitive national security documents just in a basement storage room and other rooms in his unsecured house?
Well, his contention is they're not classified. He declassified records. I don't think he knows everything that was in the box from what I've heard publicly. But it's not unprecedented at all. And frankly, the good thing about the boxes is they're not connected to the internet. There was no outrage when Hillary Clinton had thousands of classified documents on her own server with weak security, with her own email using classified emails. So that's a clear violation of the protocols. And so, right. I think the American people are sick of a double standard. They just want one standard, and they don't trust the FBI to deliver that.
You hear the almost half-hearted, all right, I'll give you that one, from the CNN anchor. My first guest is the Vice President for Constitutional Government at the Heritage Foundation. John Malcolm, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Good to be with
you. Is that not a key point right there? That Trump has boxes in his private residence. They were locked up. The FBI told to lock them up. They knew exactly where the boxes were. The Secret Service guards Mar-a-Lago. This was not on the internet where any other nation's intelligence services could have viewed these documents and nobody would know the better.
Well, it's certainly true that with respect to the Hillary Clinton, that any amateur hacker would have gotten that information, significant damage to national security, and that the documents that were stored at Mar-a-Lago would be a lot harder to get to. Somebody would have to get past the surveillance cameras, past the Secret Service agents, into the locked storage closet, comb through the boxes, and cherry pick out the documents that they were looking for. So was it the most secure in the world? Probably not, but certainly far more secure than a personal server at Hillary Clinton's home in Chappaqua, New York.
Of course, that invokes the sort of the scene from any one spy movie where the person's got a tiny little camera, right, and they're getting in there and they're quickly laying documents out, taking pictures, trying to put them back before the henchmen see them, and then into the air vent they go or something like that. But that doesn't seem to have happened, and the FBI again knew the boxes were there and told the former president to lock them up. But one thing I'm also noticing here is everybody is saying, well, he couldn't have declassified these. These aren't declassified. Even since Alexander Vidman with the, what was the phrase, interagency protocol thing, apparently Donald Trump's the only president that was inferior to every other member of the federal government.
Well, look, the president's declassification authority does not derive from any statute. It derives from the Constitution and his authorities on Article 2. The Supreme Court said that in 1988 in Department of the Navy versus Egan. So there are statutes that talk about who else besides the president can declassify documents and what the protocols are to follow. But that's not where the president's authority comes from. It comes from the Constitution, and there's no set procedure that he has to follow. Indeed, for instance, he has unilateral authority to pardon people. If he went to somebody and he said, while he was president, I pardon you for this federal crime that you committed, the person would be pardoned. Whether or not it was ever reduced to writing would be irrelevant.
And you probably would expect they might do that, but as you're saying, that's not a constitutional requirement. That's not what Adam Schiff says. Adam Schiff makes it sound like there's some kind of massive, paper trail that has to be accessible in order to be considered classified or declassified. And the other thing is, if something's been declassified and the folder still says classified on it, that doesn't mean it's still classified. That's just the folder.
Right. Once it's declassified, whether it was classified for that reason, the markings may need to be removed. Perhaps they were shoddy in not removing the markings, but the documents are declassified. Now, Donald Trump did not do himself any favors by not documenting this. He was putting a world of hurt if he had. But assuming that while he was president, he declassified the documents, I don't think he had to follow any particular protocol.
Now, almost anything can be classified information, right? I mean, the menu of a state dinner, a handwritten note. I mean, anything that the president holds can be considered classified, can it?
Well, the government tends to overclassify things. I mean, if you were writing something on the back of a napkin talking with a friend, that probably wouldn't deserve a classification authority. If you were doing it while you were having a conversation with Kim Jong-un, then perhaps it would deserve a classification authority. There are different kinds of documents. We don't know exactly what the documents were, other than we know the classification markings that they still bore. And the FBI says that they were looking for national defense information, but other than that, we really have very little idea what these documents were.
You see, and this is part of the problem here. We're all talking about this based on leaked information, essentially, right? Maggie Haberman of the New York Times has kind of become the catch-all, and this creates the public perception that the president's guilty. He has to be charged. He has to be thrown in jail. This is the only way to save our democracy. We have been through this. It was called the Mueller report.
Well, look, these selective leaks are appropriate. I mean, they're all from sources close to the investigation. Assuming that it's somebody in the FBI or the Department of Justice, it gives the lie when they say, well, we only speak in court. Well, it seems that they speak to anonymous sources and leaks to friendly media outlets. We did see some of this in the Mueller report, that kind of thing, leaking coming out of DOJ and coming out of various, administration officials. That happened.
Yeah, but if this is what the Democrats and the media are saying it is, meaning this is the most dangerous thing that's ever happened as it relates to the presidency, right? This makes Watergate look like a traffic violation. Wouldn't Merrick Garland be locking down anyone that had this information, saying, don't you dare talk to the New York Times? This could totally screw up our case.
Yeah, look, I think that leaks don't help, other than trying to repair damage in the eyes of many conservatives who are viewing the Department of Justice and the FBI with a great degree of skepticism, because I think they're using their vast powers in a politically partisan manner. But it certainly can damage any kind of a criminal case if that's what they're trying to build against a former president or anybody else.
But what do you make of, and we're going to run out of time here, last point, there was no criminal intent mentioned in the affidavit. The very basis of the Espionage Act is that you have to prove there was intent to share that information. That's not mentioned in the affidavit.
Yeah, that's true. It's not in the affidavit, but the affidavit is a search warrant to go and find documents that are to be located there that could be implicated in a crime. Obviously, intent would have to be contained in an indictment if one ends up being forthcoming.
But they kept saying Espionage Act. I mean, the media is saying Espionage Act, Espionage Act. I mean, they're saying now obstruction of justice. I mean, again, this is making people hyperventilate when there might not be any there. It seems like this is more of a public perception campaign to make Trump unacceptable in 2024.